A big question in today's world is if Putin will start a nuclear war with Ukraine.
Storybox Audio.
But before we get into that, I'm your host Luke with my partners Luke and Sophia. Today, in this episode of Ukraine Simplified, we will be answering just that.
With this ongoing war in Ukraine and advancing technology of the 21st century, many of us are wondering if it will turn nuclear. Both America and Russia have over 5,000 nuclear weapons each, so it is definitely a possibility. But before we can understand the situation, we have to understand what a nuclear weapon is.
A nuclear warhead, or atomic bomb, is a weapon of mass destruction. It causes a nuclear explosion, which can be extremely dangerous. A nuclear explosion happens when an atom nuclei is split. These nuclei are held together in the weapon. There are many different mechanisms for making these explode. A trigger mechanism is kept in the nuke to explode it when needed.
So how have nukes been used in the past?
Well, the first nuclear bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, Japan, by the United States on August 6, 1945, in order to help end World War II. This bomb was named Little Boy and was a two-trigger system bomb, one of the first types of nukes. It was 10 feet long, 28 inches in diameter, and weighed 9.7 pounds. The way Little Boy worked was after it had been dropped and was only seconds away from hitting the ground, a small bullet mechanism was sent down a tube through it and hit the neutron generator inside of it. This caused certain neutrons to break loose, and once it hit the ground, it had exploded. The explosion force was as powerful as 14,500 tons of TNT, which killed at least 80,000 people. Some within the blast range were killed by the explosion, and many others were trapped or killed by rubble and radioactive waves that spread to miles away from the bomb spot.
Is that the current type of bomb? Like, what are we using today?
No, actually, there are many more bombs similar to the second bomb used, because 3 days after Little Boy was dropped, the next bomb was dropped on Nagasaki, Japan. This bomb, known as Fat Man, was another type of bomb that was different from Little Boy because it was more complicated in its build and was a hydrogen bomb, which was supposed to be 700 times more powerful than Little Boy. It was triggered by smaller explosives on the outside part of the inside shell, which after a moment exploded the main part. This bomb was larger than the other, but only killed about 40,000 to 80,000 people. These bombs have been the only nuclear weapons directly mass used on citizens.
So connecting back to the war today, we have to think about the atomic bombs that Russia has. According to Al Jazeera, Russia has 5,977 nuclear weapons as of 2020.
So, do you think that Putin will resort to the use of nuclear weapons?
Nuclear war is not likely. People like Dmitry Peskov have said that Russia is not considering turning to atomic bombs in the war in Ukraine's invasion, and have stated that use of such weapons would only follow a threat for existence. Also, the use of said weapons is unlikely due to MAD, or MAD, which stands for Mutual Assured Destruction. This means that nuclear war would result in both the attacker and the defender perishing. Now, representatives are not as helpful as Putin himself, who has put his nuclear weapons on alert. We are hoping this is in case of attack.
Why are people worried about the production of smaller nuclear warheads?
Well, people are worried about these smaller weapons because they're used as a warning for larger attacks. According to Dr. Ulrich Kuhn, a nuclear expert at the University of Hamburg, in a 2018 study, he laid out a crisis scenario in which Moscow detonated a bomb over a remote part of the North Sea as a way to signal deadly airstrikes to come. Unfortunately, Russia has been producing these smaller weapons, which could be a sign.
What about Putin's intentions? Can we really tell what he'll do?
Some people, like Erica Simpsons, an associate professor at CPRA, are starting to think that he is crazy. She says Putin's threat to use nuclear weapons over Ukraine is crazy. Is he a madman? Has he lost his mind over the last 2 years, isolated from his family due to COVID? It looks like it. And nuclear deterrence does not work with an irrational madman. This shows that we really can't know. Putin might be crazy or he could be sane. Even though we can't know this, it is highly unlikely for a nuclear war.
In conclusion, a nuclear war is very unlikely, but not out of the equation. Thanks for listening to another episode of Ukraine Simplified.